Welcome to Business Authority Radio, bringing you insights from today's thought leaders, professionals, and influencers. With your hosts, Neil Howe and Craig Williams.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today our guest is Christi Slaven. She is the clinical director for the Egoscue Clinic in Tampa. That was a little bit hard to say. And helps anyone who's living in chronic pain. Wellness isn't the absence of pain, it's the absence of limitations, says their founder, Pete Egoscue. Welcome to the show, Christi.
Thank you.
Now, did I get your name right, Slaven, or is it Slaven?
It's Slaven, but
Slaven.
That's okay.
All right. Well, I'll get that ready for all the next time. Well, thanks very much for joining us. We're kind of in a physical therapy series here where we've been talking a lot about physical therapy, and I know that's not exactly what it is that you do. Maybe it complements it a little, but share with us a little bit about what this Egoscue method is.
Well, the Egoscue Method doesn't deal with the symptom. So my clients will come in with a variety of chronic pain issues, and I'm of course concerned with their symptom because the reduction of their symptom is how they track their progress. But I'm going to reduce that symptom by correcting their posture. There are 3 basic tenets. There are 8 laws of motion in total, but there are 3 basic tenets that we abide by. Vertical loading, that the ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle should exist in a straight line from top to bottom. The society that we've created for ourselves, that doesn't happen very often anymore. The curled in chest, the overflexed spine in almost the letter C instead of the letter S is very prevalent. So the head is usually forward, the chest is forward, and more often than not, the hips are asleep because we are really sitting most of our lives, and we weren't designed to do that. So I help people reteach their bodies how to exist in that state of vertical loading. There's also the concept of balance. Right and left should be even across. One shouldn't be further ahead or sit in an elevated position from the other. There's the concept of dynamic tension, that the front and the back of the body should work equally but opposite of each other. And so we just remind the body of these concepts through a series of exercises that we affectionately call E-sizes because of Pete's last name, Egoscue.
Well, that's very interesting. It's something that I don't think people are really aware of. You say that C shape from people. What are the causes of these things? People looking at their phones or computers or just looking down all the time?
Driving, phones, computers, just about everything we do, we sit forward. Well, we're sitting, one, which puts our hips to sleep. And then all of this other movement we do have is in that forward flexed position. We're very, very seldom standing straight. And it's pretty frequent that when I ask a client in the beginning of their therapy to stand up straight, what they do is they overarch their low back. So they take their upper body and they kind of throw it too far back because they have no movement in that mid spine, right around the rib cage.
So you said that it's very prevalent in society right now, but who would you say are the clients that come in and see you who are asking for help? What kind of person comes in and what problems are they having?
Well, low back pain is very common for us. It's actually any age group. I have a 13-year-old that I see every couple of months. I have an 86-year-old gentleman that I see from time to time as he needs a revamp on his exercises. So, the age range isn't really the concern. It's the chronic pain. The 13-year-old was having a lot of tendinitis issues. The 86-year-old gentleman, he's just stiff and tight and can't move the way he would like to in order to live. And every client I approach with a completely different personalized routine, because even though the chronic pain and sometimes the body positioning is the same, not every exercise is appropriate for them. So we tailor it to the client and what their body is doing and not doing.
So we've covered a couple of things like low back pain and just that bent over C shape. What other challenges are people having that are coming to you for your help? And, what can be done to prevent them?
I have clients with sciatica, with knee pain, like I mentioned before, tendinitis in the Achilles, in the foot, in the heel, plantar fasciitis, a shoulder. It can be a frozen shoulder. It can just be a tender shoulder, neck issues, headaches. There's even the thought process that if your spine is all misaligned, and let's say half of it is pinched really tight, so the other half has to, be a little separated, that could affect, because it affects the spine all the way up, that could affect your sinus cavities, so that you're very congested. We've actually had clients who've had improvement in their sinusitis once they get aligned. So name it, and it may take a while because this is a process of retraining muscles to work properly, but we can get you there if you're willing to do the work.
So this seems like a real whole body approach. Physical therapy really deals with movement and being able to use the joints in their whole range of motion. That does help with the pain as well. But it sounds like there's a chiropractic area in there as well as just stretching. So you're really looking at the body as a whole. Is that right?
Yes, the body is one machine. It was meant to work as a unit, and that's the way we treat it.
So what are some misconceptions that people have about, the lifestyle, or maybe what you do as far as the Egoscue method compared to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
Well, a common misconception is that they're going to do these exercises once or twice and they're going to feel better, and they actually are going to feel better. That's not the misconception. The misconception is that they can not ever have to do them again and they'll be fine forever. Egoscue, just like any other type of workout, you don't use it, you lose it. Now, as the muscles become better trained and they work more fluidly together, you could do less of them, less in time, less in actual, the number of exercises, but it's something that you're going to have to do some amount of from the time you start until the day you're no longer a breathing being on the planet. So that's the biggest one.
Right. And it seems like we all have bad habits. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you and trying to, this is straighten up my back and my neck and everything. I'm just, I'm conscious of it now because you're talking about it. But generally when I'm going through the day, I'm not conscious of that posture. So what are some things that you can do? I mean, I guess it would come down to an education and training your muscles to, behave in a different way.
Absolutely. That's what we do. There's an element to every exercise that affects the entire, we call it the kinetic chain. So the entire body unit gets some benefit from every single exercise. Even if it only burns like in one area, the whole body is being worked. The things, and we get asked a lot, what kind of shoes should I wear? Should I try to point my toes forward? These kinds of things. Too much what we call self-correcting. And by that I mean like trying to walk with your toes pointing forward when they have no idea what you're doing. I mean, your toes don't know what you're doing. You could throw something else out of balance and end up doing a little more harm than good. But, things like rolling your ankle around, pointing and flexing on occasion. People are always amazed at how little their ankles can move when I ask them to do an exercise that requires ankle movement. They're actually very surprised, and we consider the feet to be the foundation of the building. And if they don't hit the ground properly, everything else is just going to be a little bit off, no matter how hard we work it. So, little things like ankle circles, they never hurt, but too much self-correction can lead to bigger problems.
So let me take myself as an example right now. I tend to have quite a few hip problems. I do work out regularly. I was a soccer player, use my right leg probably 3-4 times as much as my left. And I have a definite, gap, I suppose, or a shortage between one leg and the other. What kind of exercises should I be doing to try and alleviate that?
Well, it's actually not a leg length discrepancy. You have one hip that is elevated, so it sits higher than the other. If you were to, in most people's cases, not every case, but if you were to measure the length of the femur, the large bone in the top of the leg, they're typically going to be, within a couple centimeters of each other. But when you have one side of your pelvis, one side of that hip that just is locked up and sits higher than the other, that femur, that large bone, has to follow suit because they're attached. The song that your knee bone's connected to your shin bone, that song's true.
Right. So basically it's a hip problem. It's not a leg or a foot problem.
Yes. It's the pelvis, it's the femur, it's the sacroiliac joint, which is that low back area. All kinds of muscles are involved. And one thing we don't do is we don't compartmentalize your body. So you probably have ankle problems. You're probably very dysfunctional in your ankles. You're putting a little too much pressure in one knee over the other. You're utilizing one hip more than the other. You have more than likely compressed vertebrae. You might even be slightly what we call rotated, meaning that hip that you always kicked with, the leg you always kicked with, the hip that followed suit, probably sitting a little further ahead of the other. So all of these issues, all of these, we call them compensations, come into play to cause that symptom, which is the pain in your hip. Where the pain is, that's never where the problem is. It's somewhere else. It could be the other hip, it could be your low back, it could be your ankle.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got that spot on without even seeing me, which is pretty impressive. But let's move on from me and tell me what stage of mind or pain people are at when they come to you. What makes them make that decision that say, okay, I got to go to help, and this seems like the place I need to go?
Well, we find that most of our clients are a little more alternative minded because we're not in that confined in that what we refer to as Western medical model. We're not in the Eastern medical model either. We kind of float between the two. Clients who are self-motivators, because there is homework that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to do their exercises on their own. Now, we keep great tabs on clients. We have them come in a couple of times a week at first to start creating the habits. But, there has to be a little bit of a self-motivation there. Clients who have a little flexibility with their time, only because they're going to have to prioritize and make these exercises part of their lives. There's the long-term thinking, because again, it's not a quick fix. It's something we almost have to untie the knots that have been created in the muscles over the years. And then from those untied knots, then we can create the new muscle movement patterns. So they need to be kind of long-term thinkers, value, professional advice. And if they are already active, that's just a bonus, because that'll make my work a little easier, and it'll make their work at home, their homework, a little easier.
Yes, I guess there's two different kinds of people, or probably more, that have problems with pain. It's those people that are, lying on the couch and don't move, so they have pain. And then you've got the active people that, are probably moving too much or doing the wrong kinds of movements that are causing pain as well.
Well, you're completely right. The people who are very, very sedentary, they have a whole different range of postural problems. But it's not so much the wrong movements that the active people are doing. It's the single movement pattern and that repetitive single movement pattern that's causing the active people the problem. When you're a runner, you run, and that's pretty much all you do. Our bodies were designed to be hunter-gatherers. We were meant to climb things, jump over things, move side to side, fall down. We don't do these things anymore. We move in a forward movement pattern. That's pretty much it. And so even the most active of us aren't getting all the kinds of motion that the body was designed to get. So that's why an active person will end up with chronic pain, because it's just one kind of movement. They run, they bike, they are, volleyball players, so they're jumping a lot and overusing one arm, those kinds of things. So I make the whole body talk to each other again.
Yeah, the body is certainly an amazing thing. And, I was seeing on the website that, you really say that the body heals itself. You just have to, like you said, you have to talk to it and make sure that it's communicating with each other.
Exactly. You give it the time and you give it the appropriate work to do, it will heal itself.
So give me an example, Christi, of somebody that has come to you. I know that you've seen a lot of people over the years, but maybe one that stands out in your mind. What kind of problems did they have when they came to you? You know, what were you able to do for them? How long did it take? And how has it really changed their life?
I have a client, a gentleman, who his low back was so locked up. I mean, we're talking this gentleman he's 6 foot. I want to say he's 6'2", but I don't remember that exactly. His stride was, meaning the length of his step, was about 6 to 8 inches. He was shuffling because his low back was so tight. I have never seen him any way but virtually via Skype. We do that with a lot of clients. I see people in person. I see people via Skype or FaceTime. And I've never seen him anything but virtually. He spent the entire summer with his kids at the beach. He's got a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, carrying them around, throwing them in the waves. I just had a session with him a couple of weeks ago just to kind of refresh his menu, because he did take, he took a little vacation from his exercises in that he wasn't doing them 6 days a week. He was getting them in 2 or 3. So, some of those symptoms over the last 3 months had, started to, he was like, okay, that doesn't feel great. So when he got back and he got settled, we did a session. He's got his new menu. He's back into his schedule, doing it regularly. And I've already talked to him, and this was a week and a half ago that we had that session. And he's back to yoga now. No more tingling in his foot. No more twinge in his back again. So it's
it completely changed. Yeah, it completely changes his life. I mean, what a difference to, not be able to move to, it's like you're getting your life back. It's wonderful to hear. Now, tell me a little bit about the history of the Egoscue Method. How did it all start? How did that come about?
Well, Pete was a Marine in Vietnam. He was injured and sent back to the States due to the severity of his injuries. Pete was an officer, and when he got back, after his recovery had, according to the military, been finalized and he was healed and he was better, he went in front of a board of doctors to be released for duty again. And he told them, look, I'm still in pain. There's still a lot of pain. And they're like, no, according to everything we see, you're fine. And he was like, no, I'm really not. They handed him the business card for a psychiatrist and said, well, it must all be in your head.
Mm-hmm.
He decided he didn't believe them and purchased a copy of the book, Grey's Anatomy, proceeded to start to read it. And he was a political science major. He wasn't a, kinesiology major or anything along that line. He bought the book, started to read it, and started to look at himself in the mirror in comparison to what the book said he should look like. He's like, okay, so that's wrong and that's wrong. Wow, that's really wrong. And he experimented on himself to correct his posture. It went so well, other Marines were coming up to him and they were like, hey, you got to help me. And he's like, okay, I had a hip thing. You've got a shoulder thing. Let's try this. And that's how it came along.
Oftentimes when you have the problem, you're the only one that's going to fix it, and trying to figure it out yourself is the only way that you're going to give yourself the attention that you need. Now, how about
necessity is the mother of invention.
That's right. Yeah. How about yourself? How did you get involved in this?
I had gone back to school and was also teaching quite a few indoor cycling classes. All of this was much more sedentary than my life had ever been in the past. I gave myself such horrific sciatica. I could not bend my left knee for fear of, on a scale of 1 to 10, pain of a 12 that wouldn't go away for days. In the process of trying to finish school and make myself better, I found some Egoscue videos online, and I tried them out, and I was significantly better inside of 3 weeks. And as my major was public health, I was politely obnoxious about, you need to hire me. But that's my story.
Well, very good. Well, Christi, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I know we've talked quite a bit about the body and the movement and the Egoscue method. If there's something that you want to touch on before we go, what might that be?
The most important things to remember about this method is that it doesn't matter what your symptom is, we can make it better. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. That's why we call it the method. And if you believe that your body can get better, you can make it so. I'm the guide. This is a client-driven therapy. My clients are in charge. I suggest an exercise, and if their gut says that's not the right one for me, we don't do that exercise. And no two routines are the same because it's all driven by the client.
So it's very, very individual. Well, that is some great information. Nice to know that you give everybody individual attention because we all have individual bodies. Exactly. Now, you're in the Tampa area. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they have questions or they want to come in and see you?
Well, the phone number is area code 813-443-0916. My email is my first name, Christi, CHRISTI, at the name of the company, Egoscue, EGOSCUE.com.
Well, thanks very much, Christi, for being my guest on the Business Authority radio show.
Thank you very much, Neil. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share. And we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to Business Authority Radio with Neil Howe and Greg Williams. To learn more about the resources mentioned in today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit businessauthorityradio.com.